Hello, team. It's time for the Daily Detangler. Today, I want to talk about detangling learning by doing. And the last 24 hours, I've been trying to make sense out of the learning by doing model and reflecting and recognizing my own tangles. And in this detangler, I'm going to share my journey of trying to untangle myself and apply the learning by doing model by zooming in on it, with the hope that this helps Activator with her assignment for Friday and also helps me publish my own tangles so that I can add to my own understanding of knots and tangles, and also respond to Catalyst's ask around detanglers to kind of put a box around something and share and pay out what I'm actually learning in the process. So when I first got 3 videos on learning by doing, I was super excited because I love that topic. And, I'm as detangler, really, trying to tap into that. But at the same time, I kind of don't know what to do. So, I haven't really advanced the ball on learning by doing. So when I first saw the videos come in, I'm like, oh, this is awesome. And then as I was getting through them, I'm like, oh man, I wish I would have came up with this stuff. And then I was like, oh, um, that's really cool. But then at the same time, what the hell is he talking about? I just that's the unique thing about Catalyst. I don't think the way he does. So one of the things I've recognized in this journey of embracing superpowers is we all think differently and we all have superpowers. And I don't think like Catalyst and I can't produce what Catalyst does. There's no way I could come up with what he does, but that's not the point. Can I build off of it? And that my I'm reminded of my son who has dyslexia and how his brain works. And sometimes he comes up with stuff. I'm like, how did he do that? And he got the right answer. So instead of trying to dissect that and wallow in it, it's like, okay, I don't learn that way. Maybe I can learn that way. I don't learn the way Catalyst does, putting out a 12-step process of learning across 3 prototype phases, but maybe I do. Maybe I do learn that way. What would happen if I try it? So, what would that look like? So, playing the tape here, Catalyst learns by doing. We've been talking a lot about that. Mimecast is really intrigued by this concept of learning by doing. Catalyst wants to support Mimecast and Nick with the learning by doing approach. And there's a lot of win-wins. There's a lot of synergies there. So Catalyst publishes the process of the learning by doing. I, Detangler, want to use that process, but I get tangled on what Catalyst is talking about. So I talk to Catalyst and he's like, hey, apply the learn by doing. So you need to learn by doing by using the learn by doing. How trippy is that? And then Activator sends her learn by doing from the call, the salesperson call from Mimecast. And here we are today with, I'm going to follow the learning by doing process to produce a detangler and learning by doing, and sharing how I'm getting tangled on learning by doing and untangling myself as I'm learning by doing. So the learn by doing is really the pivotal thing here. And as ambiguous and confusing as that is, how do I engage in that? Well, from Stone Soup, I'm reminded of the importance of when you knock on the doors or you try something and there's an alternative, to sit back and reflect and recognize what's going on. So why am I confused? So he put out the learn by doing process. One, I have the kind of the stinking thinking talk track about comparisons, and then I also have the I wish I would have done that, and then the idea of, well, I don't learn the way he does, and 13 steps of learning, that's confusing. and now I'm getting anxious, so I'm going to fight the concept and not apply it. And then I talk to Catalyst and he's like, apply it. And then I'm feeling like, okay, I'm being shaped here. Um, and do I trust the process and trust the team enough to allow that shaping to happen? Because the team is more important than myself. So am I going to lean into that process and let it happen and see what happens, right? As opposed to quote unquote fighting it. And yeah, would I be doing it at this moment in time? Probably not. But does it feel like quote unquote inconvenience? Sometimes it does, over a weekend or whatever. But I recognize that doing it late is better than never, and doing it now is a pivotal moment for Detangler. So while that might start creeping in as, oh geez, I've got so much going on, I can choose, right? I have the ability to choose my response, that response ability that I've talked about in previous detanglers. So what happened when I first was presented with the, hey, learn by doing, it's 13 steps, I kind of processed it with this operator lens. Well, how am I going to learn? What is he doing? What's his role versus mine? How does this work? How do I do it? What are the steps? And how do I do it now? How do I do it now? Versus working backwards from the innovation steps of, okay, what is the objective here? And what's the situation? And why is this being presented as an alternative to the status quo? And can I recognize and appreciate the different? Doesn't it make logical sense that if we're changing go to market to go to customer, and we're expecting marketing and product and sales teams to change, isn't it justifiable and appropriate to recognize that I have to change too? And perhaps I need to change how I think about learning. And so therefore, this is on the path of go to customer, and that's going to be great. So the learn by doing, um, publishing the learning path, I put out a video yesterday where I was kind of trying to make sense of this. And I'm like, okay, 3 prototype phases. What are these orange boxes? What are the blue boxes? And Catalyst went through this so fast. It was like, and then this happens that leads to this one, and that leads to this one. And then I break it down, and then he proved to me, and, it was super fast run through. So, and then I talked to Catalyst, and was, he was basically saying, well, just try to use it and see what happens instead of analyzing it and breaking down. So I asked myself in an attempt to get untangled, okay, what's the minimum knowledge I need to start doing something? And when I was talking to Catalyst, he had a great analogy. There's the study of baseball and everything that it entails, and trying to hit a curveball, or getting in the batting cages and just trying to hit the curveball. And that's kind of what this is for me, is let me just get in and take a swing at this learning path thing. So the first thing I did was, okay, there's 3 phases. Now I know we spent a lot of time in prototype. So one, in column A prototype is really what we're trying to figure out. 2, based on the talk track from Catalyst with activator, trying to go straight to, go to C and saying, look, we're not working on C. Let's work on A, right? With her stone soup 60 minutes thing, it was more about how do we prototype something. So I can zero in on kind of the prototype column here, and then listening to the talk track, I can plot out some of these nodes. So, it's kind of like the 12 or 13 step process here, with 5 of them in the prototype. First, understand the situation. Second, gain insight. Third, build something from the insight. Fourth, break it down. And 5, prove to me, what I'm talking about. So Activator shared her rundown, and she was kind of focused on the blue boxes, and it was hard for her to document her learning. And my hypothesis was she was focused really on the blue box and trying to unpack the blue box, and I did that too, the blue box view. So that was helpful for me to say, well, there must be something in being situationally aligned first before developing the insight. So what's the situation? And if I use the innovation kind of framework, the situation as I understand it is, well, we need to learn by doing to help Momcast learn by doing, to bring people along and create momentum. That's our objective. The old, why are we doing this learn by doing versus another? Well, the old way doesn't work. It's too slow. It's too much about conformity, too much about somebody acquiring knowledge and shooting on them to get them to learn. Who is the recipient of this learn by doing? Well, catalyst and activator in Mimecast. So can I untangle myself, apply what I've learned, and learn by doing to produce something? That's the recipient. When? Well, this is ongoing. We're gonna always focus on the objectives and keep energy going. I need to keep my energy and emotions in check, and then build off of what's being done, create something, put something out there, right? It's the process. And then how does it work? It's working based on the situation, the roles of the people involved, applying our principles, and then this exchange of value is how it works. And then where is the ecosystem? And we're trying to change the ecosystem. We're evolving the ecosystem from here to there, from old to new. So if I say, is this a good rundown of the situation, which would be box one, right? Am I able to repeat back the situation? And then from there, am I starting to get untangled? And I would say yes. For me, all those questions I have before this situation, and understanding the situation and documenting the situation, all of those questions I had before seem irrelevant to what's the situation. They're kind of a smokescreen to getting to understanding the situation. They're a red herring of, I need to pursue all this and have all these answers before I start understanding the situation. And if I can understand the situation, the better I can articulate the situation, the better I can learn by doing. So once I understand the situation, there's four other boxes, right? So from the detangler from the catalyst overview, what's the situation? What insight did I gain? Based on the insight, what can I visualize? Did I break it down into parts? And then can I prove to catalyst that I know it? So I just did number one, what's the situation? So what was my insight? That would be my next step. What would be my insight? And then based on the insight, what can I visualize? Can I break it into parts? And can I prove I know it? So at this point, I was like, okay, well, this is good, but what am I gonna run through this, right? I'm gonna run the learn by doing through the learn by doing by learning by doing. So what insight did I gain? I don't know yet, but what I did was say, well, let me build a bit of a scorecard. So Clarity and I talked yesterday, and it was about this difference between a scorecard and a checklist. So I said, well, maybe I'll take these criteria on the left in the prototype phase and I've created a checklist. So do I understand the situation? Yes or no? Based on the situation, do I recognize an insight? Yes or no? Based on the insight, can I visualize something? Yes or no? Can I build something and break it into steps and prove that what I'm seeing and saying, these are yes or no's? To get to defensible prototypes, because that's the goal, is to get to defensible prototypes. And that's how we would close out the prototype phase. We all know exactly what it is, and that's awesome, right? That says catalyst. Okay, so I shared, do I understand the situation? So yes, I'm going to say that, yes. And If we were live, I would ask catalyst and activator, so maybe I did, maybe I didn't, maybe I'm close enough. Obviously I'd want to tighten that up, but so I'm getting untangled. And now I have this checklist to help me get going. So what's based on the situation, what's the insight? Good question. So I gave it a shot, right? I'm going to learn by doing right now. So what I've done is I've gone through and I've dissected the, um, well, first of all, I've recognized and reflected on my own feelings, emotions, and my own status quo, you know, business suit and the, tractor beam that pulls me back to status quo. And then I fleshed out that there's a difference between those and applied and looked at it through the lens of the learning path. And I asked myself a simple question to help me cut through that complexity and that ambiguity, because I have a challenge with, hey, well, what's the end state here? Instead of focusing on the total end state, I just asked myself, what's the minimum amount of knowledge I need to start doing? So to answer that question, I started documenting this. And because of time and because of where we're at, I focused on the prototype phase first, but I sliced it into, there's 3 phases and 13 nodes. Let me focus on the first 5. What's the situation? And then based on that, develop the checklist. So now I'm at step 2. Did I recognize an insight? Okay. So my insight here that I'm going to declare is knowledge does not equal understanding. So the knowledge I gained in trying to dissect the learn by doing process is not the same thing as actually using the learn by doing process, which is what I'm doing now. And so there's a difference between understanding what the boxes are versus, knowing what the boxes are versus understanding what the boxes mean and how the boxes can help me learn. And because of this, knowledge does not equal understanding. Where does understanding come from? Understanding comes from learning, and learning comes from doing. The best kind of learning, right? The best, most actionable, most relevant learning that adds the most value comes from doing. And there are barriers to learning by doing that I can encounter and recognize, and I publish those. So that's my insight, is I have these repeatable status quo tractor beam things that happen in my head, these tangles that always surface when I'm presented something new. So the next step in my checklist would be, okay, that's my insight. Can I visualize something and show it? So that's step 3. So here's, based on that insight, can I visualize and show it? Well, operators and innovators are biased to learn differently. Somebody says, try this, and the operator says, hey, I'm going to do this activity. How do I do it? What's my takeaway? What are my immediate next steps? Whereas the innovator says, so when somebody says, try this learning framework, okay, what's the objective? Why this way and not another? And who's going to benefit? Because I want to make an impact. I want to understand this so I can make an impact. That's my bias as an innovator. So that's the third step, is I visualize something here and trying to apply the framework. And then I've said, okay, well, based on this, it would be cool if I could figure out the discrete steps, which is the next checklist item in the learn by doing framework. Is once I've built something, can I break it down into discrete steps? So learning to operate, what are the discrete steps to learning to innovate? And what are the anchor points? Well, as an operator, what are the steps to getting unplugged from the status quo? And as an innovator, what are the steps to unleashing my strengths, for example? And as an operator, how do I move from what do I get? How do I do it? What are others doing for me? What's in it for me, 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 me? How do I move from there to, okay, what's the objective? Why this way? Who's going to benefit? And when do I add value? Because I want to make an impact, right? So now what are the discrete steps? I'm not sure, right? Am I currently in the process of learning? Yes. Have I completed the learn by doing framework? No. First of all, I'm in a detangler setting. Second of all, and according to the checklist, I would need to break this down into discrete steps and then go to conflict mode and beat the crap out of them, which I don't have the luxury of doing. So here's my scorecard. Can I prove to others I know what I'm seeing and saying? So I turned the scorecard. I'm going to give myself a 5 on a situation, and then activator and catalyst can tell me, no, I didn't get the situation right. But I'm just going to pretend I did. I nailed the situation. Did I recognize an insight? I'm gonna say I got a win here because I documented an insight, and it's my damn insight, and I'm the expert on me, so it's my insight. So can I visualize it? And I did. So I'm declaring victory there. Now, can I build it and break it into discrete steps? Not really. And then can I prove it? No, because I need to prove it. And therefore I don't have a defensible prototype. I have toast at the most and some C slides, perhaps. But am I learning? This is the thing here. Am I learning? I'm going to say yes. And see, the thing about this that I'm learning by doing here, it's much like change. Have I fully changed? No. Where and how does change happen? It happens every day and every minute. Am I fully learned? No. Do I learn? Have I learned everything? No. Have I completed the 13-step process? No. But am I learning? Yes. So what is this thing, learning by doing? And learning by doing is this ongoing pursuit and of evolution. And much like change, it happens every minute of every day. And paying attention to our process can unlock progress. And what the learning by doing framework and steps and 13 steps helps me do is give me structure to plug into and to recognize that from my perspective on the scorecard, I probably do 1, 2, and 3 fairly well, but I don't do 4 and 5. And that ironically is the same call to action that Catalyst gave me yesterday is, how do I make something concrete and show what I'm learning? And maybe this detangler does that. I don't know. You'd have to tell me. So this all relates to trusting the process and engaging in the now and embracing this idea of I don't have to have all the answers, but I can learn by doing. And learning by doing is a lot like the backward bike. Uh, I have to learn how to get on it. And the idea of figuring out how to ride that backward bike comes in following the process, not in studying it to acquire more knowledge. And so with that, I've been able to kind of walk through the prototype phase and walk through the learning by doing boxes and the 5 things that happen in prototype phase. And what I can do is start evolving detanglers, not only to bring stone soup in like I did here, but also the conundrums, because I can see how the conundrums can help with this. And I also believe that this structure here will reveal itself, much like change. The more I engage, the more it will reveal itself. And the more it's a process to leverage the stone soup story. Stone soup is how this happens. Stone soup is the way in which we can all contribute to each other's learning journeys. And perhaps this is an ingredient for a pot, right? This detangler, maybe it's an ingredient, or maybe it becomes its own pot. But either way, I'm asking for your ingredients to this, and what do you see? And that's trusting the process. So thanks so much for today's Daily Detangler and paying attention and engage. I hope this was helpful to see how I've published and publicized my own brain, put my brain on paper, and my own guinea pig of going through the learning by doing. Obviously, I have a lot to learn, but hopefully this helps move forward. All right, have a great day, and we'll see you tomorrow.